5 years had passed since humanity revealed its true strength to the galaxy. The Great War was over, but peace brought its own challenges. Fleet Admiral Kim Ji-ho stood on the observation deck of the UES Harmony, watching a sight that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. Below them, former enemies worked side by side. Vorthak engineers helped human technicians repair a damaged space station. Nexari crystal growers collaborated with Delurian bioshapers to create new kinds of living ships. Children from a dozen different species played together in the station's recreation areas, their laughter echoing through halls that had once known only the sounds of war. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" asked Captain Lee So-hee as she joined the Admiral on the observation deck. 5 years ago, these species were trying to kill each other. Now look at them." Ji-ho nodded, but his expression remained troubled. "It's what we hoped for," he agreed. "But I sometimes wonder if we did the right thing. We used fear to bring peace. Is that really any better than what the old powers did?" It was a question that haunted many humans in positions of leadership. They had not wanted to become galactic overlords, but circumstances had forced them into that role. Now they had to decide what kind of rulers they would be. On Earth, Counselor Oh Min-soo struggled with similar questions during the weekly meeting of the Terran Council. The room was filled with representatives from across human space, but the debates were as heated as ever. "We should rule with absolute authority," argued General Nam Ji-soo, her voice sharp with conviction. "The aliens respect only strength. Show weakness and they'll try to overthrow us the first chance they get." "That's exactly the kind of thinking that created this mess in the first place," countered Dr. Yoon Sera, the Council's chief diplomatic advisor. "If we become tyrants, we'll be no better than the Vorthaks or Nexari. The galaxy will be trading one set of oppressors for another." Min-soo listened to the arguments with weary patience. These debates had been going on for months, with no clear resolution in sight. Some humans wanted to rule the galaxy with an iron fist, ensuring that no alien species would ever again be strong enough to threaten Earth. Others pushed for a more collaborative approach, treating former enemies as potential allies rather than permanent threats. "The question," Min-soo said finally, "is not whether we should rule, but how we should rule. The galaxy has given us this responsibility. We can't simply walk away from it." The truth was that humanity had no choice but to lead. The old galactic order had collapsed so completely that without human oversight, the galaxy would descend into chaos and war. Billions of beings depended on Earth's protection and guidance. Captain Bae Suman represented the future that many humans hoped to achieve. Her exploration vessel, the UES New Horizons, carried a truly integrated crew. Humans worked alongside former enemies, not as rulers and subjects, but as equals united by common purpose. "Captain," reported her Vorthak tactical officer, Lieutenant Krakven, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Andorian sector. It appears to be coming from an unregistered vessel." Bay nodded. "Take us there, maximum speed, and prepare the medical bay for possible casualties." This was how things were supposed to work. Species that had once been enemies now trusted each other enough to serve on the same crews. The Vorthak officer had once been taught to see humans as inferior creatures fit only for slavery. Now he served under human command by choice, not because he was forced to. But even as the galaxy adapted to its new reality, long-range sensors continued to detect the approaching fleet from beyond the galactic rim. The objects were still more than a year away, but their energy signatures grew stronger every day. Whatever was coming, it was vast beyond imagination. Dr. Shin Yujin worked around the clock at the Deep Space Monitoring Station, trying to understand what the sensors were showing her. The approaching fleet, if it could be called that, consisted of objects larger than anything that should be able to exist. Each ship was the size of a small moon, yet they moved through space at impossible speeds. "Director," she reported to Earth. "Command. We've managed to get clearer readings on the approaching objects. The energy output from each ship is equivalent to an entire star. We're not just looking at a fleet, we're looking at a civilization that can harness stellar-level power." Director Kim Sun-woo received the report with grim understanding. Humanity had revealed its hidden strength to defeat the galaxy's existing powers. But these new arrivals might be operating on a level that made human technology look primitive by comparison. "What are our options?" he asked his senior staff during an emergency meeting. "We could try to make contact," suggested diplomatic advisor Chung Hyun-suk. "Perhaps they're explorers or refugees rather than conquerors. Or we could prepare for war," countered military advisor Colonel Park Young-ho. "If they're hostile, we need every advantage we can get." Sun-woo made the decision that would define humanity's next chapter. "We do both. We prepare for war while hoping for peace. And we make sure the galaxy is united when they arrive." This meant accelerating the integration process that had been slowly bringing former enemies into the human-led coalition. Vorthak shipyards began producing vessels designed with human technology. Nexari crystal growers started developing new materials for human ships. The Delurians shared their bioengineering knowledge to create more advanced life support systems. On Ni, the lunar surface, Ambassador Kang Minho addressed a gathering that would have been unimaginable just years earlier. Representatives from every species in the galaxy had come to hear humanity's proposal for facing the unknown threat approaching from deep space. "We stand at a crossroads," Minho said, his aged voice still strong and clear. "We can face this new challenge as divided species, weakened by old hatreds and rivalries, or we can face it as one galaxy, united by common purpose and shared strength." The response was mixed but hopeful. Many species that had once been enemies were now willing to work together under human leadership. The Vorthak Confederation offered its military expertise. The Nexari Collective promised their crystal technology. Dozens of smaller species pledged their support. But the real change was happening in places like the Galactic Academy on Luna, where human and alien children learned together. 10-year-old Park Min-woo played with his best friends, a young Vorthak named Skalron, and a Nexari crystal child called Brightsong. To them, the old hatred between their species was ancient history. They saw each other not as members of different races, but simply as friends. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Min-woo asked his friends during recess. "I want to be an explorer," said Skalron, his scales shifting to show excitement. "I want to find new worlds and meet new species. I want to be a scientist," chimed Brightsong, her crystal form glowing softly. "I want to discover how the universe really works." "I want to be a peacekeeper," said Minwoo, like Ambassador Minho. "I want to help different species understand each other." Their teacher, a human woman named Dr. Kim Yoonji, listened to their conversation with hope. This was the future that humanity was fighting for. A galaxy where children could dream of exploration and discovery instead of conquest and domination. But that future was not guaranteed. Long-range probes sent to intercept the approaching fleet had gone silent one by one. Their signals cut off as they encountered whatever was coming toward the galaxy. The unknown vessels continued their approach, now less than 6 months away from the outer rim. In his private study on Earth, Ambassador Minho reviewed the reports from the deep space monitoring stations. At his age, he had hoped to see the galaxy settle into peaceful coexistence. Instead, humanity was facing its greatest challenge yet. "Remember," he had told the children at the academy during his last visit, "strength without wisdom is tyranny. We didn't reveal our true nature to become conquerors. We did it to ensure that no one would ever again mistake kindness for weakness, now that philosophy would be tested against whatever was approaching from the dark between galaxies. Humanity had stopped pretending to be weak. Soon they would discover if they were strong enough for what was coming next." The message boards lit up across human space with a single urgent transmission from the deep space monitoring stations. "Unknown fleet has reached the galactic rim. All ships, prepare for contact. This is not a drill." The galaxy that humanity had fought to unite would now face its first test as one people. The age of hiding humanity's true strength was over. The age of testing that strength was about to begin. The old galactic order lay in ruins. Where once there had been clear lines of power and control, now there was chaos. But from that chaos, new alliances were forming, and at the center of them, all stood humanity. Admiral Park Seo-young commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. But it was unlike any fleet that had come before. Human ships flew alongside vessels from dozens of different species, all united under Earth's protection. The aquatic Delurians had offered their biotechnology after years of oppression under Vorthak rule. The insectoid collectors, impressed by human tactical thinking, brought their advanced manufacturing capabilities. "Admiral," reported Captain Kim Tae-hyun from the bridge of the Delurian bioship Living Current, "the liberation of the Kepler mining worlds is complete. The Vorthak slave camps have been shut down and the workers are free." So-young nodded as she studied the tactical displays surrounding her command chair. The UES Liberation hung in space above what had once been a Vorthak stronghold. Now it was becoming something new, a free port where any species could trade without fear of exploitation. "What's the status of the Nexari surrender negotiations?" she asked. "They're asking for terms," replied her communications officer, Commander Yoon Hyejin. "Speaker Veltar wants to know if they'll be allowed to keep any of their territory." Seo-young smiled grimly. 6 months ago, the Nexari had controlled over 200 star systems. Now they were begging to keep even one world for themselves. "Tell them they can keep their homeworld," she decided. "But all other Nexari territories will be governed by the species they once ruled, and they'll pay reparations for the next 50 years. The terms were harsh but fair. The Nexari had grown rich by enslaving other civilizations and stealing their resources. Now they would learn what it meant to work for their survival instead of taking what they wanted by force." On the Vorthak, homeworld, the situation was even more dramatic. The great reptilian empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries had completely collapsed. 3 different admirals claimed to be the rightful leader, and their armies were fighting each other in the streets of their capital city. Colonel Jang Wushik led a human peacekeeping force through the ruined streets. His soldiers wore powered armor that made them stronger and faster than any Vorthak warrior, but they carried non-lethal weapons. Their job was not to conquer, but to restore order. "The Eastern District is secure," he reported to his command team. "The civilian population is no longer in danger from the military factions." Behind him, human medical teams worked alongside Vorthak doctors to treat the wounded. Engineers from both species collaborated to repair damaged infrastructure. It was a scene that would have been impossible just months earlier, humans and Vorthaks working together as equals. But the most important changes were happening in the political sphere. Diplomat Lim Woojin sat across from the surviving leaders of the major galactic powers in what had once been the Galactic Council chambers. The Great Hall looked the same, but everything else had changed. "The terms are simple," Woojin said, reading from the document in front of him. "Complete disarmament of all military forces above planetary defense levels. Reparations to be paid to every species you have oppressed or enslaved. Recognition of the Terran Federation as the galaxy's peacekeeping authority." The alien delegates looked very different than they had during humanity's first appearance before the Council. Gone was the arrogance and condescension. In its place was fear, desperation, and the growing realization that they were now the weak ones begging for mercy. Former Speaker Veltar, her crystal form dim and cracked, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "And if we refuse these terms?" Woojin's expression remained polite but cold. "Then you will discover what our planet-cracking weapons can do to crystal worlds. We demonstrated their capabilities on one of your moons. Would you like us to demonstrate them on your homeworld as well?" The threat was not empty. Human ships now carried weapons that could literally crack a planet apart like an egg. The aliens had seen the demonstration when one of the Nexari moons had been reduced to an asteroid field in less than an hour. "You had 50 years to treat us as equals," Woojin continued. "You chose to treat us as inferiors instead. Now you will learn what it means to be the ones looking up at your superiors." One by one, the surviving alien powers signed the surrender documents. The Vorthak hegemony agreed to become 3 separate democratic governments under human oversight. The Nexari Collective accepted protectorate status and the loss of most of their territory. Dozens of smaller powers that had supported the old system agreed to complete restructuring of their governments. But the real work was happening on thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were tasting freedom for the first time. Planets that had been strip-mined by alien corporations were beginning to heal. Trade routes that had enriched only the powerful were being opened to everyone. Captain Seo Jinwoo of the exploration vessel UES New Dawn represented humanity's vision for the future. His ship carried a mixed crew of humans and aliens working together to map unexplored regions of the galaxy. Instead of conquest fleets, Earth was sending out science vessels and colony ships. "Captain," called out his Delurian science officer, title singer Aquana, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the nebula ahead. It might be worth investigating." Jinwoo nodded. "Take us in. Let's see what we can find." This was what the galaxy could become. Not a collection of empires fighting over resources, but a community of species working together to explore the wonders of the universe. It was the vision that humanity had tried to share 50 years ago, when they had first asked to join galactic civilization as equals. On Earth, President Oh Min-soo addressed the planet's population and the galaxy beyond. His image was broadcast to every inhabited world, translated into thousands of languages, and watched by trillions of beings. 5 years ago, he said, the galaxy's great powers made a choice. They chose to see humanity as a threat to be contained, rather than partners to be welcomed. They chose oppression over cooperation. They chose fear over friendship. Behind him, images showed the new galaxy that was taking shape under human leadership. Former slaves building their own cities. Scientists from different species working together on impossible projects. Children from dozens of worlds playing together in integrated schools. "We did not want to become your rulers," Min-soo continued. "We wanted to be your equals, but you forced us to become your superiors instead. We will use that power responsibly, but we will use it. Never again will the galaxy be ruled by those who see other species as inferior." The speech was heard by beings across the known universe. Some listened with resentment, angry at losing their positions of privilege. Others listened with hope, grateful to finally be free from oppression. But all of them understood the same basic truth. The age of human weakness was over. In the Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting Pluto, Dr. Park Jimin studied the long-range sensor readings with growing concern. His instruments were detecting something at the very edge of sensor range, massive objects moving through the void between galaxies. "Director Kim," he reported to Earth Command, "we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up what appears to be an incoming fleet. Size unknown, but the energy signatures are unlike anything we've seen before." Director Kim Sun-woo studied the report with tired eyes. He had hoped that Earth would have more time to stabilize the galaxy before facing whatever other threats might exist in the universe. But it seemed that was not to be. "How long until they reach our space?" he asked. "At current speed, approximately 2 years," Dr. Park replied. "But sir, these energy readings, whatever's coming, it's bigger than anything the Vorthax or Nexari ever built." Sun-woo nodded slowly. Humanity had revealed its true strength to deal with the galaxy's existing powers. Now it seemed they would need to discover just how strong they really were. The galaxy had learned not to underestimate humans. Soon humanity would learn whether they were strong enough for what was coming next. The galaxy had underestimated humanity in many ways, but their greatest mistake was thinking that humans only knew how to fight with ships and guns. Dr. Shin Airi understood that the most powerful weapon was not one that destroyed bodies, but one that destroyed minds. From her office deep beneath the surface of Earth, Dr. Airi commanded an army that the aliens could not see or fight against. For decades, her psychological operations division had been preparing for this moment. They had studied every alien species, learned their fears and weaknesses, and built weapons designed to attack their minds rather than their ships. "Begin project. Mirror," she told her team of analysts and communications specialists. "It's time to show the galaxy what they really look like." Across space, hidden human probes that had been floating disguised as space debris for years suddenly came to life. These small devices contained powerful transmitters and the complete communication records of every major alien civilization. Now they began broadcasting those records back to the galaxy. The effect was like holding up a mirror to show someone their own ugly face. On the Vorthak homeworld, citizens watched in horror as their government's secret communications were played on every public screen. They heard their leaders planning to use their own people as cannon fodder in wars of conquest. They learned that the great military victories they celebrated had actually been massacres of defenseless civilian populations. Admiral Gracton, one of the surviving Vorthak commanders, tried to maintain order as his people rose up in revolt. "These are human lies," he announced on the government communication networks. "They have faked these recordings to turn us against each other." But the recordings included DNA verification codes and quantum encryption signatures that could not be faked. Every citizen could verify that these were real conversations between their real leaders. The Vorthak people had been proud of their military might. Now they discovered that their heroes were nothing but bullies and murderers. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The crystal cities of the Nexari grew dark as their people learned that their beautiful civilization was built on the slavery of other species. The insectoid collectors discovered that their queen had been selling their eggs to alien laboratories for experimentation. Captain Quan Jinwoo led the most elite unit in the human military, though no alien had ever seen them in action. His Shadow Strike teams used technology that seemed like magic even to other humans. They could teleport instantly across vast distances, walk through solid walls, and become invisible to any form of detection. Team Alpha, prepare for insertion. Jinwoo commanded from the bridge of the stealth ship UES Ghost. Target is the Nexari Command Center on Velsuran Prime. The plan was simple but impossible by alien standards. Jinwoo's team would teleport directly into the heart of the most secure military facility in Nexari space, plant quantum explosives in the computer cores, and vanish before anyone knew they were there. Lieutenant Cho Minji checked her equipment one final time. The quantum teleporter on her belt could move her instantly across thousands of miles of space. Her armor made her completely invisible to Nexari sensors. Her weapons could destroy any target without making a sound. "Ready for deployment," she reported. "Go," Jinwoo ordered. The team vanished from the ship and reappeared inside the Nexari command center. The crystal beings working at their stations had no idea that humans were walking among them. The aliens could not see them, could not hear them, and could not detect any sign of their presence. Minji moved through the facility like a ghost, placing explosive devices in critical systems. Each bomb was smaller than a coin, but contained enough destructive power to level a city block. More importantly, they were designed to detonate in a specific sequence that would make it look like the facility had suffered a massive system failure, rather than an attack. "Charges placed," she reported through her quantum communicator. "Ready for extraction." "All teams, return to ship," Jinwoo ordered. The humans vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. 5 minutes later, the Nexari command center exploded in a chain of blasts that destroyed their entire military communication network. To the surviving aliens, it looked like their own systems had malfunctioned catastrophically. But the psychological impact was far greater than the physical damage. The Nexari had believed their facilities were perfectly secure. Now they realized that humans could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. Every shadow might hide an enemy. Every system failure might be sabotage. Fear spread faster than any weapon. The most terrifying discovery came when Agent No Sung-min began revealing just how many humans had been living in disguise among alien populations. For over 20 years, human agents had been using advanced biotechnology to alter their appearance and blend in with other species. "My real name is No Seung-min," he announced during a live broadcast from what everyone thought was a Nexari government building. "But you have known me as Crystal Singer Velmiran, trusted advisor to Speaker Veltar herself." He pressed a control on his wrist and his crystal disguise fell away to reveal a human face underneath. The technology that made this possible was beyond anything the aliens had imagined. Perfect biological camouflage that could fool any scanner or genetic test. "For 10 years I have sat in your highest councils," Seung-min continued. "I have heard your secret plans and reported them to Earth. I have influenced your decisions and guided your policies. And I am not alone. Across the galaxy, Other human agents began revealing themselves. A trusted Vorthak general removed his scale suit to show the human underneath. A respected collector queen advisor shed her insect disguise. A valued trade negotiator for the aquatic Delurian stepped out of his water-breathing apparatus. The revelation shattered what remained of alien confidence. If their most trusted advisors were human spies, then who could they trust? How many more humans were hidden among them? Were their own family members actually enemy agents? Paranoia consumed entire civilizations. On the Vorthak homeworld, citizens began attacking anyone who acted strangely or asked unusual questions. The Nexari started using painful crystal resonance tests on their own people to make sure they were really crystalline beings. Military commanders refused to follow orders from superiors they suspected might be human infiltrators. Dr. Airy watched the chaos spreading across the galaxy from her command center on Earth. Her psychological warfare division had achieved something that no army could have accomplished. They had turned the galaxy's greatest strength against itself. "Ma'am," reported her communications specialist, Major Lee Donghyuk, "we're receiving thousands of surrender messages from planetary governments. Most of them are begging for protection from their own military forces." Airy nodded with satisfaction. "What about the major powers?" "The Vorthak government has collapsed completely. There are at least 12 different factions claiming to be the legitimate rulers. The Nexari Collective has sealed their borders and is refusing all outside communication. The other council species are in similar chaos. And our agents in place? All reporting successful mission completion. The aliens are so busy fighting each other that they've completely forgotten about fighting us." This was the genius of human psychological warfare. They had not needed to destroy every alien ship or conquer every alien world. Instead, they had made their enemies destroy themselves. Fear, paranoia, and mistrust had accomplished what no weapon could have achieved. Captain Park Seo-yun of the diplomatic vessel UES Peacemaker received the first official surrender from a major alien power. The crystalline Nexari, once the most proud and advanced civilization in the galaxy, sent a message that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. To the human government, the message read, "The Nexari Collective formally requests terms for our surrender. We acknowledge that we have underestimated your capabilities and wish to avoid further conflict. We are prepared to accept any conditions you deem appropriate." Similar messages arrived from dozens of other worlds. Species that had ruled star systems for thousands of years were now begging for mercy from the creatures they had dismissed as primitives. But the humans were not done yet. The galaxy had been ruled by fear and deception for too long. Now it was time to build something better, and that meant making sure that the old powers could never rise again. The psychological war had been won, but the real work of building a new galactic order was just beginning. News of the destroyed fleet spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On 1,000 different worlds, beings who had never feared anything suddenly found themselves looking at the stars with new eyes. The humans, those primitive creatures, from the small blue planet, had done the impossible. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Minho stood once again at the central podium. But this time, the Great Hall was not filled with laughter. The alien delegates sat in nervous silence, their eyes fixed on the human who no longer seemed small or weak. "You ignored our warnings," Minho said simply. His voice carried easily through the vast space. "Now you know why we gave them." Speaker Veltar rose from her crystal throne. The Nexari leader's voice rang like broken bells as she spoke. "This attack will not go unpunished. The crystalline Nexari have the most advanced shielding technology in the galaxy. Our defenses have never been broken. Your defenses protect against weapons you understand," Minho replied. "What will you do against attacks from places that do not exist in your reality?" Veltar's crystal form blazed with angry light. 500 of our finest warships will show you the price of threatening civilized species." The Nexari fleet was indeed impressive. Each ship was grown from pure crystal, beautiful and deadly. Their energy shields could stop any known weapon. Their hulls could repair themselves if damaged. They had conquered entire star systems with fleets half this size. Captain Han Ji-woo watched the approaching alien armada from the bridge of her experimental ship, the UES Prometheus. This vessel looked different from other human ships. Its hull seemed to flicker and fade, as if it could not decide whether it existed or not. "Dimensional drive is online," reported her science officer. "Lieutenant Park Hyunwoo, we are ready to phase into fourth-dimensional space." Ji-woo nodded. The Prometheus was humanity's first-dimensional warfare ship. While other species built bigger guns and stronger shields, human scientists had learned to fight in spaces that existed outside normal reality. "Phase us out," she ordered. "Let's show them what dimensional warfare really means." The Prometheus began to fade from normal space. To the Nexari sensors, it simply vanished. But the ship had not gone away. It had moved sideways through reality, into a dimension where the rules of physics worked differently. From fourth-dimensional space, Ji-woo could see the Nexari fleet spread out below her. Their beautiful crystal hulls and powerful shields meant nothing here. She was attacking from an angle that did not exist in their three-dimensional world. "Target the lead vessels," she commanded. "Fire dimensional torpedoes." The weapons that struck the Nexari ships came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The crystal hulls, which had never been penetrated by any three-dimensional weapon, shattered, like glass struck by a hammer. The energy shields that protected them could not block attacks that came from outside their reality. Captain Bayoltar of the Nexari flagship watched his perfect ship come apart around him. "How is this possible?" he asked his science officer. "Our shields show no weapon impact, no energy signatures, nothing." "The attacks are coming from the fourth dimension, Captain. Our defenses cannot function against weapons that exist in spaces we cannot reach." One by one, the mighty Nexari warships broke apart and died. 500 of the galaxy's most advanced vessels were destroyed by a single human ship that fought from a place they could not see or understand. But the real damage was not being done in space. On planets across the galaxy, intelligence officer So Hyunjin was broadcasting the conversations that human agents had been recording for decades. For 50 years, human spies had listened to alien communications. They had recorded the private meetings where galactic leaders planned to strip mine Earth. They had captured the conversations where civilized species discussed which humans would make the best slaves. They had documented every insult, every threat, every plan to destroy or control humanity. Now all of those recordings were being broadcast across the galaxy's communication networks. On the water world of Deluria, the aquatic Delurians listened in horror as Vorthak leaders discussed using their planet as a breeding ground for war beasts. They had thought the reptilian species were their allies and protectors. In the hive systems, the insect-like collectors heard Nexari speakers planning to harvest their larvae for crystal-growing experiments. The beautiful crystal beings had claimed to be studying collector culture to help them advance. Across 100 worlds, smaller species learned that their supposed protectors had been planning their destruction or enslavement. Trade agreements collapsed. Military alliances crumbled. The great galactic civilization that had existed for thousands of years began to tear itself apart. "My fellow beings," Ambassador Minho said during an emergency broadcast that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy, "For 50 years, Earth has tried to join your galactic community as equals. We were told we were too primitive, too violent, too dangerous. But we were patient. We listened. We learned." His image appeared on screens across thousands of worlds. Behind him, holographic displays showed the wreckage of the Vorthak and Nexari fleets. "What we learned was that the civilized species of this galaxy are neither civilized nor worthy of the power they hold. You have ruled through fear and deception. You have kept smaller species weak so you could control them. You have planned genocide against anyone who might challenge your authority." The broadcast continued for an hour. Minho presented evidence of corruption, slavery, and planned massacres. He showed how the galactic government had been designed to keep certain species in power while crushing others. He revealed the truth about the civilization that claimed to bring peace and order to the stars. But perhaps the most terrifying revelation came at the end of the broadcast. Agent No Sungmin, who had been posing as a Nexari diplomat for over a decade, revealed himself as a human operative. "My name is No Sungmin," he said, standing in what everyone had believed was a Nexari government building. "I am a human intelligence agent. For 10 years I have lived among you, learned your secrets, and placed surveillance devices in your most secure facilities." He looked directly into the camera. "How many more humans do you think are hidden among you? How many of your trusted advisors, your military officers, your government officials are actually human spies?" The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, paranoia erupted. Alien leaders began to suspect everyone around them. Governments fell as trust collapsed. Military commanders refused orders, unsure if their superiors were really who they claimed to be. On Earth, director Kim Sun-woo watched the chaos spreading across the galaxy with mixed feelings. He had hoped it would not come to this, but the aliens had forced their hand. "Sir," reported Colonel Yoon Jisoo from the Intelligence Center, "we're receiving surrender requests from over 200 star systems. Most of them are smaller species that want human protection from their former overlords." Sun-woo nodded slowly. "And the major powers?" "The Vorthak hegemony is in complete collapse. 3 different admirals are claiming to be the new leader. The Nexari Collective is trying to recall all their fleets to defend their home systems. The other council species are demanding emergency meetings." "They're finally ready to talk," Sun-woo said. "But it's too late for talking. They had 50 years to treat us as equals. Now they'll learn to treat us as superiors." The old galactic order was dying. In its place, a new power was rising. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy would be ruled not by the oldest or the most advanced species, but by the ones who had been smart enough to hide their strength until the moment was right to use it. The humans had stopped pretending to be weak. Now the galaxy would discover what that really meant. Admiral Zetok felt pleased with himself as his fleet moved toward human space. 200 of the finest Vorthak warships followed behind his flagship, their dark hulls bristling with plasma cannons and ion torpedoes. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built, or so he thought. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we are approaching the human outer colonies. The asteroid belt is just ahead." Zetok nodded. The plan was simple. They would destroy a few human mining stations and cargo ships. Nothing too violent, just enough to remind the humans who really ruled the galaxy. Then they would move on to Earth itself and demand the surrender of their military forces. "Any sign of human ships?" Zetok asked. "Negative, Admiral. Their long-range sensors are too primitive to detect us at this distance. We should have complete surprise." That was the first mistake. The human sensors were not primitive at all. Commander Lee Do-yun sat in the captain's chair of the UES Retribution, watching the alien fleet approach. His ship hung in the shadow of a large asteroid, completely invisible to Vorthak scanners. Around him, 50 more human ships waited in perfect silence. "All ships report ready," said Lieutenant Commander Kim Soo-young from her position at the tactical station. "Gravity mines are in position. Stealth fields are holding steady." Do-hyun smiled. The Retribution was nothing like the cargo ships and research vessels the aliens had been watching for 50 years. This ship was 500 meters long, built with technology that the galaxy's greatest scientists said was impossible. Its hull was made of materials that didn't exist on any periodic table. Its engines could bend space itself. "Wait until they're fully committed to the asteroid field," Do-hyun ordered. "Let them think they're safe." The Vorthak fleet moved deeper into the asteroid belt. On his flagship, Admiral Zetok was growing confident. No human ships in sight. No weapons platforms. No defenses of any kind. These primitive creatures really were as helpless as he had thought. "Prepare to engage the mining stations," he ordered. A few warning shots should be enough to make them surrender. That was when the trap closed. "Now," Do-hyun said quietly. Across human space, ships that had been invisible suddenly appeared. The Vorthak fleet found themselves surrounded by vessels that should not have existed. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. Weapons Officer Young Mirai pressed a series of buttons on her console. "Gravity mines activated," she reported. The space around the Vorthak fleet suddenly became very strange. Artificial gravity fields, each one strong enough to crush a mountain, appeared around the alien ships. The Vorthak vessels, designed for zero-gravity combat, found themselves being pulled in different directions by forces they could not understand or fight against. Admiral Zetatok watched in horror as his mighty warships began to crumple like paper. The gravity fields were tearing them apart from the inside out. Hull plates buckled and snapped. Weapon systems collapsed. Life support systems failed. "What is happening?" he screamed into his communicator. "Report! All ships report!" But there was no one left to answer. In less than 10 minutes, 200 Vorthak warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas and twisted metal. On Earth, Professor Yoon Tae-hyung sat in a control room deep beneath the planet's surface. Around him, holographic displays showed the locations of every alien ship within 100 light-years of human space. He had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. "Planetary defense grid is online," he announced to his team. "All quantum disruptor satellites are responding normally." The satellites looked like simple communication devices. The aliens had been watching them for decades, assuming they were just human attempts to improve their primitive technology. They had no idea that each satellite contained a quantum disruptor capable of tearing apart the molecular bonds that held starships together. "Professor," called out Dr. Shin Mina from her station, "we have incoming alien vessels. Looks like a Nexari scout group." Yoon nodded. "Let's show them what quantum disruption can do to crystalline hulls." The Nexari ships were beautiful things, grown rather than built, with crystal hulls that could reflect any energy weapon and absorb any physical impact. Their captains felt completely safe as they approached the inner solar system. Human weapons had never been able to so much as scratch their perfect crystal armor. The quantum disruptors changed that. As the invisible beam struck the Nexari vessels, their crystal hulls began to vibrate at the molecular level. The perfect crystal structure that made them so strong became their weakness. The hulls developed tiny cracks that spread and multiplied until the entire ship came apart like a broken window. Captain Bae Yunho of the Nexari vessel. Bright Star watched his control panels fail one by one. "What kind of weapon is this?" he asked his science officer. "Unknown, Captain. Our hulls are destabilizing at the quantum level. This technology should not exist." "Send a message to the Council," Yunho ordered as his ship began to break apart around him. "Tell them the humans have weapons we do not understand." But the message was never sent. The Bright Star and her sister ships joined the expanding debris field that had once been the pride of the Nexari fleet. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency alerts were sounding. The survivors of the Vorthak and Nexari fleets were sending desperate messages. Their reports all said the same impossible thing. The humans had weapons that defied the known laws of physics. Speaker Veltar could not believe what she was hearing. This must be some kind of trick. Humans cannot possess such technology. But the evidence was undeniable. 2 of the galaxy's most powerful fleets had been destroyed in less than an hour. Not defeated in battle, but completely annihilated by weapons that seemed to come from nowhere. Ambassador Minho's face appeared on the Council's communication screens. He looked the same as always, calm and polite. But now there was something different in his eyes. Something that made even the most arrogant aliens feel suddenly very small. "Members of the Council," he said, "you have seen a small demonstration of what happens when you ignore our warnings. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Leave human space immediately or discover what our real weapons can do." The communication ended, leaving the Council chambers in shocked silence. For the first time in thousands of years, the great powers of the galaxy realized they might not be the strongest species in the universe after all. Admiral Zetatok, one of the few Vorthak survivors, sat in his damaged escape pod and stared at the debris field that had once been his fleet. His scales had turned gray with fear and shock. He had ruled star systems and conquered entire civilizations. Now he could not even understand how his ships had been destroyed. "Send word to all Vorthak forces," he whispered into his emergency communicator. "Stay away from human space. Whatever these creatures really are, they are not what we thought they were." The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices from 100 different worlds. Ambassador Kang Minho stood at the center podium, his dark suit looking simple next to the shining armor and flowing robes of the alien delegates around him. He held a small datapad in his hands, but his eyes were steady as he looked at the creatures who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Honored members of the council, Minho began, his voice clear in the translator systems. For 50 years, Earth has followed every rule you have given us. We have stayed in our small corner of space. We have accepted the limits on our trade. We have paid the taxes you demanded from us. A low hiss came from the Vorthak section. These reptile-like beings were 7 feet tall with scales that changed color when they were angry or amused. Right now, their scales showed the bright yellow of laughter. Admiral Zetok, their leader, spoke with a voice like grinding stones. "Little human," Zetok said, "you speak as if you have choices. Your people barely learned to leave your own planet. We have been traveling between stars since before your species discovered fire." The Nexari delegates made sounds like wind chimes, ringing. These crystal beings looked beautiful, but their voices were cold. Speaker Veltar spoke for them. "The human requests are denied as always. You may not mine in the Kepler sector. Those worlds belong to civilized species." Minho nodded slowly. He had expected this answer. For 50 years, Earth had asked politely for the same things other species took for granted: the right to mine asteroids, the right to build colonies on empty worlds, the right to trade freely with other planets. Every time the answer was no. "I understand," Minho said, "but I must deliver one final message from the people of Earth." He pressed a button on his datapad. The giant screens around the hall lit up with a simple message in 100 different languages. It read, "Earth has been patient. Earth has been polite. But Earth has also been preparing. This is your final chance to treat us as equals. You have 72 hours to reconsider our requests." The hall erupted in laughter and angry voices. The Vorthak scales turned bright orange with rage. The Nexari chimed like breaking glass. Other species shouted insults or threats. They had heard human warnings before, and nothing had ever come of them. High above the planet, Captain Park Jihoon watched the meeting through a quantum communication link. He stood on the bridge of a ship that didn't officially exist. The UES Harmony hung in empty space, hidden by technology that made it invisible to every scanner the aliens possessed. "Did you see their faces?" asked Lieutenant Choi Yuna from her station. She was young, only 25, but she had been training for this moment her whole life. "They think we're still using rockets that burn chemical fuel." Jihoon smiled. "Let them think that. The longer they underestimate us, the better." Around them, the bridge hummed with quiet activity. Every surface was covered with displays showing information that would have amazed the galaxy's greatest scientists. Gravity readings that showed impossible measurements, energy signatures that defied known physics, weapon systems that existed only in the dreams of the most advanced civilizations. "Captain," called out Ensign Han Wusung from the communication station. "Message coming in from Earth Defense Command." "Put it through." The face of Director Kim Sun-woo appeared on the main screen. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was firm. "The Council has rejected our final offer as expected. Ambassador Minho is transmitting the coded message now." Jihoon nodded. For 50 years, Earth had played the part of the weak, primitive newcomers. They had let the aliens think humans were barely capable of space travel. They had hidden their real technology and pretended to struggle with problems they had solved decades ago. "What are your orders, Director?" Jihoon asked. "The dove has been caged," Sun-woo said, using the code phrase they had planned years ago. "Release the eagles. All ships are to move to Phase 1 positions. If they want to see what humans are really capable of, we'll show them." The communication ended, and Jihoon turned to his crew. These men and women had been chosen from the best of Earth's military. They had trained in secret facilities hidden beneath the surface of Mars and in the asteroid belts where no alien sensors could find them. They had waited their entire careers for this moment. "You heard the Director," Jihoon announced. "Send the signal to all ships. Operation Revelation begins now. Across human space, invisible signals reached ships that the galaxy didn't know existed. On research stations hidden inside asteroids, scientists began powering up weapons that bent the laws of physics. In underground facilities on Earth, soldiers put on armor that made them stronger than any alien warrior. Back in the council chambers, Mino gathered his papers and prepared to leave. The aliens were still laughing and making jokes about human weakness. Speaker Veltar approached him with the crystal equivalent of a sneer. "Your threats mean nothing, little human," the Nexari said. "We have seen your ships. We know your technology. You are children playing with toys." Minho looked up at the towering crystal being and smiled. "You're right about one thing," he said. "You have seen our ships. The ones we wanted you to see. The slow ones, the weak ones, the ones we built to make you feel safe." He walked past the confused alien and headed for the exit. As he reached the door, he turned back one last time. 72 hours, he said. "Then you'll see what we've been building while you weren't looking." The great hall fell silent as Minho left. For the first time in 50 years, some of the delegates looked uncertain. The human had sounded different, not like the polite, humble creatures they were used to dealing with. There had been something in his voice, something that sounded almost like a warning. Admiral Zetok laughed, breaking the silence. "Humans and their empty threats. Perhaps it's time to remind them of their place. I think a visit to their outer colonies is in order." The other delegates nodded in agreement. If the humans wanted to make threats, they would learn the price of challenging their betters. They would send their fleets to human space and show these primitive creatures what real power looked like. They had no idea that this was exactly what Earth had been hoping they would do.